Hi, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the Crazy For You podcast. I'm Ellen Lewis, and this is episode, to be perfectly honest, I don't have them numbered, and I know that I should go back to the beginning and give them all a number, and I promise that I will do that in my copious spare time, and I might even change the name of the podcast, but it's something like, I've been doing this for 7-8 months. It's probably something like episode 32 or 33. So you can always go back and watch them on YouTube and on Facebook. So anyway, welcome to this episode and happy International Women's Day. Isn't that a wonderful holiday to celebrate women all over the world? I love that. It seems so knitting related. And I don't mean to be sexist. I know plenty of guys knit, but for me, it seems that in the shop, it's such a women-oriented community, and I'm so grateful for that. So, happy International Women's Day to you. Hi, Joyce. Nice to see you. Hi, Peggy, Gail. Oh, I'm so glad you guys are here. So, tonight we are going to look at beautiful Lucky Tweed from Kelbourne Woolens. And I meant to bring a skein home from the shop, but I got so busy and distracted, I didn't. So let me show real quick, share my screen with you and show you. So this is what it looks like. It is put up in a big, beautiful 100-gram hank. So, hi, Gwen. So 210 yards per 100-gram hank. Its suggested gauge is 16 to 18 stitches over 4 inches on a US size 7 or 8 needle. So that puts it kind of squarely in the Aran heavy worsted gauge, right? Hi, Karen. Hi, Gwen. Oh, hi, Jill. Oh, so nice. I'm so happy to see you guys. So it's 100% merino, and it is hand wash dry flat. So it's not an easy care yarn. And that's just information that you're going to see on the ball band when you look at it in the shop. But there's also some other really interesting information about Lucky Tweed that I wanted to share with you when I was chatting with Kate and Courtney of Kelbourne Woolens. So it may be that you remember or that you heard this from before, but Lucky Tweed is a Donegal Tweed. And being a Donegal Tweed is kind of like being champagne, okay? Lots of countries, lots of places make sparkling wine, but you can only call it champagne if it's made in Champagne in France. So you can only call a yarn a Donegal Tweed if it is made in Donegal, Ireland. And it has a certain set of standards that go with it, and just that whole sort of chateau kind of concept for yarn, which I think is very, very cool. So it is actually a legit Donegal Tweed. And as a tweed, it has these like little bits of other kinds of yarn, other colors of yarn, or other shades of not actually spun yarn that are worked into the fiber before it is spun. So it's all dyed separately and then carded and combed together and spun afterward. And it is a woolen spun yarn. So you probably know this, but let me just tell you anyway. So in a worsted spun yarn, the fibers are combed and carded so that they all lie smoothly in the same direction. It makes for a very, very smooth yarn. And in a worsted spun, and some of you who are spinners are going to have to, I'm sure I'm going to hear about it. You can correct me or enhance what I say. I'd be happy to hear the comments. But in a woolen spun, they're a little more jumbled up. So you have yarn fibers going in different directions. And each, not one is not better than the other. They're just different. So a woolen spun yarn tends to be very, very light and very lofty, because with a worsted spun, where the fibers are all kind of going in the same direction, there's not that much air between them. But with a woolen spun, when the fibers are all going in different directions, you get a very open kind of structure, very, very light and lofty yarn. Do you know what I mean? Lofty, just you can squinch it down and it feels light. So for an Aran weight yarn, to have 210 yards per 100 grams means that it is very light. Do you see what I'm saying? So the relationship between the length of fiber available, the yardage, and the weight and the gauge. So this heavier gauge. If you were dealing with a worsted spun at this gauge, you'd probably be looking at something like 89 yards per 100 grams. I mean, per 50 grams. You know, it would be a lot less. It would be more something like 180 yards. Sorry for that. 180 yards per 100 grams for a worsted spun, heavy worsted Aran versus 210 for this beautiful light tweed yarn. Does that make sense? I've had some more people. Hi, B. Lovely to see you. So, okay, so this sweater, this is a great thing to talk about. So I'm not traditionally a tweed loving girl. And I was first introduced to Lucky Tweed when my wonderful rep, Michael, and I were talking about the different options that Kelbourne Woolen had and all the different yarns that they had. And he said, you know, Ellen, you really ought to look at Lucky Tweed. It's a beautiful yarn. And I kind of said, yeah, no, probably going to pass on that. Tweed doesn't do that well in my shop. Here's the secret. I had a bad experience with tweed when I was a newer knitter. I got this beautiful color. It actually was very similar to the color that I'll show it to you again. So it was very similar. Do you see this kind of dark turquoise color? It was very similar to that color, and it was almost identical to the color of my father's eyes. And I bought that yarn because I was going to make a sweater for him, which I did. But I'll tell you, the yarn was very sticky. And I have come later to find out that a lot of tweed yarns are not, they have a lot of residual lanolin in them, which can be very lovely, and a lot of people like it. But as a newer knitter, I didn't know what to do with this sticky quality in my yarn and this very, very sheepy kind of smell. Don't get me wrong, I love sheep. I mean, the name of the shop is Crazy for You, right? So anyway, but I had that experience and I just didn't love it. And again, I was newer and I think it was maybe a little bit of an acquired taste for me. I've come to find out that I could easily have washed that yarn ahead of time and gotten rid of some of that residual lanolin. I didn't know any better. So I guess I just was sort of turned off from tweed. And when I did bring tweed into the shop, because I wasn't fully bought into it, I wasn't able to I wasn't able to honestly support it. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not going to say I love something when I don't. I was like, yeah, if you like tweed, here it is. But this is a sweater that actually came as a sample. It's a different tweed yarn, but I didn't knit this. It is a hand knit, but I didn't knit this, and it's great with the cables. So tweed yarn is a beautiful yarn for a cable project because, as I said, it's very light and very lofty, and cables, as you know, take a ton of yarn. They just really eat up the yarn, and they make a dense fabric, and they can make a very heavy fabric. But when you're using a tweed, it's so light that you don't get that kind of heavy and compacted feel. So that's one of the benefits of using tweed in a cable project. And it may be why you see so many cable projects in a tweed. Another thing about it is that texture tends to the purl side, and cable projects typically have a substantial amount of reverse stockinette. So you'll see the purl side and all that beautiful texture that what you're buying when you buy a tweed is showcased in reverse stockinette. So that's probably another reason. I am way off track and I'm sorry. So what else did I want to say? So another thing that I learned about Lucky Tweed from Kate is that it's not finished after it's been spun. So again, I'm not a spinner, but when yarn is first spun and plied, it kind of has a lot of energy left in it from the spinning process. That, you know, the twist, and it just hasn't had a chance to relax. Just as our knitted fabric hasn't really had a chance to relax until we kind of wash it or block it. So this is not yet finished as a, you know, as a spinner, and that means that when you do block it, it's going to open up and bloom a lot. It's not necessarily going to change your gauge, but it is going to change the fabric. So it will bloom, which means those fibers will expand a little bit, and you'll see a decrease in the distance or the spaces between your stitches. So it'll just, I mean, I love that term bloom, because to me, I think of a rosebud, you know, all uptight, and it's very pretty, but when it blooms, it just sort of opens up and you can see all of the beauty that is that fully bloomed blossom. Does that make sense? So I think it is important, if you're using Lucky Tweed, to go ahead and block your swatch, which isn't something that I always do. In fact, I almost never block my swatch fully, you know, wash it, because I do that in the knitting, and I check my gauge, and I mean in the finishing project. But this is one that you're going to get a sense of how pretty it is if you do that. Hi, Andrea. Nice to see you. Let's see what else. So, so I was chatting, as I said, with Kate about this yarn early on, and she was talking about a designer that had designed a sweater for it that was very pretty, but she was concerned because the designer had gauged the project at 22 stitches to 4 inches, which she felt was like really tight for this yarn. And she said, you know, I'm going to start a, you know, I'm going to do my blog. They've been blogging for a long time, but she did a beautiful blog post on the Kelbourne Woolens site, and you can see that if you go. But I was going to share with you a couple pictures that she had, because I think they're really illustrative of what happens and what the yarn looks like in at different gauges and in different patterns. So let me go ahead and bring that up for you guys. Okay, so this is 3 different swatches of Lucky Tweed. The largest one she did at a gauge of 16 stitches over 4 inches. And then the middle one was 17 stitches to 4 inches. And the smallest one was 18 stitches to 4 inches. And to be honest, she said that she needed a size 6 to get to 18 stitches to 4 inches, and she used 8 to get the 16. Again, remember, it doesn't matter what size needle you are using or what size needle the designer used. What's important is the gauge that you're getting. So B says, my first encounter with tweed, I thought I was given a cheap, heavily linted yarn. Oh my gosh. Bless your heart. Yeah, that's, you know, it's a thing when you're, you know, when you're a newer knitter and you're not sure what you're working with and your materials, you don't know that that beautiful thing, or that thing that you think is icky, is actually you know, a real prize. Like, it's like stinky cheese, I guess. It's an acquired taste or whatever. So these are the 3 swatches that she did just in stockinette. And let me see if I can get that much closer for you so you can see them more closely. So it, you know, it might not be particularly evident, you know, as it comes through the screen, but it's definitely much tighter at 18 than it is at 16, obviously. And it really depends on what you intend for that garment. And she also did a really pretty swatch of the Lucky Tweed in this pattern for a a project that she was looking at. And I thought this was interesting to show, again, with the baubles, which are very, very heavy design element. You can get away with that with a tweed, again, because it's so light. But isn't that pretty how this bit of brioche and the baubles showcase the yarn and vice versa? I think that is such a nice phenomenon when the yarn showcases the pattern and the pattern showcases the yarn so perfectly. So let's see, what else did I want to tell you? Okay, so we are doing the Lucky Tweed in our March hat, which is kind of a fun thing. And I have swatched that, and I will share that with you as well. Is this the one? Yes. Okay, so this is, this is another example of the Lucky Tweed close up. Let me see if I can get any closer for you. Yes. Okay, so look at that really, really kind of close up. This is the color Fog, and as I said, this is what we are using for the March hat. And look at how beautiful and subtle those little bits of tweed are in there. So let me show you the yarn sort of far away. So if you look at the yarn kind of from here, you get sort of an overall kind of a greenish gray aspect. So it's very much a neutral, right? But then when you look at it close up like this, you can see all of these different colors. There's this blue, and there's a little bit of yellow, and there's a beautiful pink in there. Just a lot of really lovely, lovely colors that make it so much more interesting and sophisticated, but still a really, really wonderful, wearable, neutral kind of fabric. So I like that. I think that's great. And I'm just gonna slip this in here. This is the promo for our hat. And whoops. I don't know why that comes up like that. Anyway, something wrong with the website. My goodness. All right, never mind. Isn't that awful? I don't know what is going on with that. That comes up red. I'm gonna have to do something. Anyway, so if you're interested in trying the Lucky Tweed just in kind of a fun little project, the March hat, I think, is a really pretty one for you to play with it. And I've chosen, I've designed it with several stitch patterns in there, as you can sort of see from this sneak peek, that will give you an opportunity to play with a variety of stitch patterns and see how the yarn looks in a different kinds of pattern. Originally, I was swatching it just to see which pattern I was going to use, but I ended up deciding that I liked them all, and I liked the sort of sampler effect. So I think you will like that as well. But with any really beautiful, lovely yarn, the question always is, what should I make with it? So I pulled a few patterns. A lot of them are designed by Kate and Courtney of Kelbourne Woolens, and others are designed for their collection for the Lucky Tweed by designers that they know and trust. You know, I'm all about designers that you know and trust, because you can find anything you want on Ravelry, and anybody can be a designer. So you really want to be sure before you buy a pattern that it's by somebody that either that you know and trust, or somebody that you can sort of look and see that a lot of people have made that and had a really great success with it. So I think that's kind of important. All right, so the patterns on Ravelry. There are a lot. So again, this is a little hat that I think is very pretty, designed in the Lucky Tweed. A very pretty pattern that uses decreases to create almost a cabled effect, and it looks like it has some little baubles in there, and I think this is very pretty. A better shot of that. But you see how the tweed in this particular color is very subtle. It's really just a shade of the other, and it looks like there might be some tiny little bits of burgundy in there, which is beautiful, of course. Another one that I like is Esme. I think this is absolutely stunning. This is a drape front cardigan with brioche in it, and just a beautiful shape. If you were to do this garment, isn't that lovely? Andrea, this is right up your alley, isn't it, darling? If you were to do this much brioche, I think, and the double layer front with a yarn that is not a tweed, or a yarn that was in any way heavy and not lofty, I think it would just be very, very uncomfortable to wear. But with this very light yarn, this would be beautiful and comfortable and so much fun. Yay, Karen. I'm glad. I'm so glad you like it. I'm excited to send that out to you. And this one is by Kate. So pretty. They use that beautiful model. She looks very Irish, doesn't she? As I said, the cables are very nicely showcased with this kind of a tweed yarn. Very light. This is a drop shoulder garment with a beautiful turtleneck. I think somebody commented that this was very, very Kate. She wears a lot of turtlenecks, as do I. So this is a pretty one. You can get a close-up on that. The tweed is in fact so popular that it's pretty much out of stock at Kelbourne for some time. But I was wise enough to listen to my rep and order what remained. So I do have it in stock, and I'm super excited about that. And I'll be showcasing that at the beginning of next month. In fact, we are doing we're doing a coconuts class starting on Saturday, and we're doing this coconuts class, the coconuts beginner class, the Emma. We're starting that this Saturday, and that's a very fast pattern. It's knit at a very big gauge, and it's easily done in 4 weeks. So after the coconuts class, anyone who has knit a coconut sweater or taken the class, I'm going to offer you the opportunity to take this class, which is Tony. Let me share that with you. So this is just a really pretty cardigan, very basic cardigan with a nice deep rib. And I know in this pattern that she gives you some opportunity to put short rows in to adjust for any kind of bust shaping you might want to do. Great pocket, very pretty. And this is actually knit in the Lucky Tweed, which I think is a lovely, very wearable, very versatile kind of wardrobe basic. And here she's done it in a color block in the tweed. So you can see how that looks. Isn't that pretty? I think that's just so lovely. I like this one that's a little longer, I think a little better. But very pretty stuff. So nice. Doesn't that just look like something you'd want to curl up in on the sofa? I like that. And the last one I want to share with you, of course, is the Weekender. Everybody's favorite sweater by, there's my dog, by Andrea Mowry. This is a beautiful sweater. She's just so darn cute, of course. But what I wanted to showcase here is that it has a huge amount of reverse stockinette. And as I said earlier, when you have a yarn with a texture as lovely as the Lucky Tweed, reverse stockinette is your best way to showcase it. So you have this whole field of stockinette that's going to really make those little tweedy bits pop and come to the fore. So this is an easy top-down sweater. that a lot of my customers have made, and I'm very tempted by it. And I think that would be a lovely use of the Lucky Tweed. We just have to look at Andrea a little more. Like I said, she's so darn cute. So yeah, so I think Lucky Tweed is one of the tweeds that has really kind of changed my mind. I also like other tweeds, but this is sort of right in there at your classic Aran weight tweed fabric that looks sort of earthy and feels earthy, but also the colors in it and the softness of the hand are different from what I've experienced in tweed before. So that's why I like it. Great yardage, beautiful hand, lofty feel, lightweight, generous yardage, beautiful palette with subtle and sophisticated colors. Nothing garish about Lucky Tweed. So for me, if you're going to make a sweater in a tweed that's going to be kind of a timeless classic, all of those factors are really important in choosing your yarn. So I like it, and I hope that you will like it too. Who has ordered the hat kit? Because that's in this color Fog that I think is really pretty. And I'll give you another little sneak peek of the swatch. Which is it? Oh, it's this one. So these are the stitch patterns that are going to be in there. Isn't that pretty? I'm so excited. So yeah, did anybody have any questions about the tweed or anything that I did not address that you are interested in knowing about it? All right, so I am working the hat on, the ribbing is in a size 6. And as we looked at on Kate's swatches, she got 18 stitches to 4 inches on a 6. My knitting is slightly different, and so I am working my hat with the ribbing on a size 6, and the body of the hat is going to be on a size 8. So I'm excited to block my swatch, and I will share with you soon, maybe in the comments after the fact, the picture of the Lucky Tweed swatch after it's been blocked. And Andrea asked about the care. Yes, so Lucky Tweed is a hand wash, dry, flat yarn. You are going to use eucalyptus for this, or soak if you prefer. And we had an interesting conversation about washing and caring for wools in my Facebook group this morning. Someone asked, they said that they had been always taught to use ivory flakes for their hand knits. I use eucalyptus and soak, and I like them for a couple reasons. One is their pH balance, which means that they're kind of neutral. Or slightly acidic, which is better for a wool fabric. But what's most important about them is that they're no rinse. So they don't suds up. Manufacturers put sudsing agents into soap so that you know it's working, so that you see those bubbles. You're like, wow, this is really getting my stuff clean. But those bubbles are not what are getting your your fabric clean. Cleansing a fabric is the chemical reaction between the dirt and the cleanser. So the bond, if you had any chemistry or organic chemistry, the bond between the dirt on your clothing and the dirt and the cleansing agent is stronger than the bond between the dirt and your clothes. So what happens is you just fill a sink with warm water, you put in your soak or your eucalyptus, and you submerge your hand knit and you let it soak for 40 minutes and you take it out and you wring it. You don't have to scrub it. You don't have to wring it. You don't have to squeeze it. And best of all, you don't have to rinse it. So you're not having to rinse it. You don't get the sticky residue that you often get from a sudsy kind of soap. And you're not handling your fabric while it's wet, which runs the risk of felting it or stretching it out or, otherwise damaging the fibers. So cotton and linen are stronger when they're wet. Wool is weakest when it's wet. So you definitely want to be careful handling your fabric when it's really, really wet. So, so there's that. And that is how I'm going to close tonight. I thank you so much for joining me. And I look forward to sending you your hat kits out. I know that you are looking forward to it. I think they're going to be beautiful. And let me know if you want some Lucky Tweed. It'll be up on the website on March 1st. Thanks so much and have a great evening. Bye-bye.